After my husband died, my neighbor told everyone I was just crying for the insurance money, then dated my brother to get close to the deed. No man stays long in that house, she'd laugh. But when I saw her name on bounced mortgage checks, I called my lawyer and buried her. I was standing in my kitchen in Springfield, Missouri, staring at a fat stack of envelopes that all had the same red stamp across the front. RETURNED, insufficient funds. My stomach dropped when I saw the name printed on the checks inside. Not mine, not my late husband's, it was my neighbor's name. A woman who had spent the last year whispering that I only cried at my husband's funeral because of the insurance payout. My hands shook as I spread the checks across the counter. They were tied to my mortgage account, payments that were supposed to be automatically withdrawn each month. Except these weren't my checks. They were hers. Her name, her sloppy signature, her bank. I didn't understand. Why the hell would she be paying and bouncing my mortgage? Then it hit me like ice water down the spine. Someone had changed my auto-pay information. Someone had routed my home payments through her account. Someone had made sure they'd bounce. Someone had set me up to look like I was defaulting. And that someone lived 20 feet away and watered her stupid hydrangeas every morning while smiling at me through the fence like we were still friendly neighbors, instead of the woman who called me a grief actress behind my back. Her name was Jessa Carter, 38, blonde, too tan, always holding a wine tumbler the size of a fishbowl. And recently, this was the part that made my stomach twist, she'd started dating my older brother, Mark. 6 weeks after my husband's funeral. 6 weeks after she told people in the neighborhood Facebook group that no man stays long in that house. Like losing my husband in a car crash was some kind of curse I brought on myself. I kept replaying her voice in my head, that smug little chuckle she always did when she wanted to seem harmless. No man stays long in that house. Must be the ghosts, huh? Hope the insurance money helps. That's the bright side of tragedy, right? Back then, I thought she was just an insensitive asshole. I didn't realize she was plotting something. I stared at the checks again, my pulse thudding in my ears. They were all dated over the last 4 months. 4 months where I thought my mortgage was running like normal. 4 months where she'd been dating my brother, sliding herself into my family like she belonged there. 4 months where she had been the first person to help me check the mail because I seemed overwhelmed. My throat tightened. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't some weird attempt at charity. This was sabotage. And I had no idea how far it went. I grabbed my phone, took photos of every check, every envelope, every mismatched timestamp on the bank statements. My fingers dialed my lawyer before my brain could catch up. The moment he picked up, I blurted, "Something is wrong with my mortgage. I think someone is trying to take my house." There was a long pause. "Come in first thing tomorrow," he said. "Don't talk to anyone else." But the thing is, I didn't wait until tomorrow. Because 10 minutes later, while I was still standing in the kitchen with those bounced checks laid out like evidence in some crime documentary, I heard tires on gravel. I looked out the window. It was Jessa, pulling into her driveway, stepping out of her car with a smile like she hadn't just nearly cost me my home. And then, this part still makes my skin crawl, she looked straight at my house and waved. Like she knew, like she was waiting for something. And that's when I realized the worst part. If she had access to my mortgage, what else had she touched? I didn't know yet. But I was about to. And the truth would be uglier than anything she'd ever whispered. Before everything fell apart, my life in Springfield felt quiet. Not perfect, not shiny, but stable in a way I'd grown to appreciate. My husband, Daniel, and I bought that house 8 years ago. Nothing fancy, single-story, old porch swing, creaky floors. But it was ours. We used to sit outside on summer nights drinking cheap beer and talking about how we'd raise kids there one day. Then one rainy night last year, he died in a 3-car pileup on Highway 65. No warning, no miracle, just a phone call at 2:17 a.m. that split my life into before and after. The neighborhood rallied around me for maybe 2 weeks. People brought casseroles, offered rides, left cards on the door. And then, almost like they were tired of the sad widow, they backed off. Except for one person, Jessa Carter. She lived next door, and before Daniel died, she was more of a casual wave-across-the-yard type. Not a friend. Not an enemy, just there. Someone who borrowed sugar and returned it 3 weeks later with the bag already opened. But after the funeral, she suddenly became my shadow. showing up with coffee, offering to clean, offering to screen my mail so I didn't stress myself sick, telling me what I should say to the insurance company, giving me unsolicited advice about refinancing. At first, I thought she genuinely wanted to help. I was numb and exhausted, and having someone around filled the awful silence. But then the weird comments started. Little digs, little jabs. Must be nice to have that insurance cushion. You're lucky he had good coverage. Some people get left with nothing. You'll land on your feet fast, pretty girls always do. Or the one she repeated more than once, no man stays long in that house. The first time I brushed it off. The second time it made me cringe. The third time I asked what she meant, and she shrugged like she didn't even hear herself. I started pulling away from her, stopped answering her knocks, didn't invite her in anymore. And right around that time, like she needed a new way to get close, she started dating my brother. Mark is a good man, loyal to a fault. He's also the kind of guy who believes everyone is who they pretend to be. So when Jessa slid into his life like some sweet neighbor just trying to help, he didn't question it. He liked that she supported me. He liked that she cared about the family. He didn't know she was feeding people rumors about me in the neighborhood group chat. He didn't know she told the young couple across the street that I was milking the widow act. He didn't know she said I was unstable from grief when I didn't laugh at her jokes. But I knew, I just didn't know why she was doing it. I thought she was jealous, or bored, or just a nasty person who liked drama. But then smaller things started going wrong. A bank notice I never received. A credit card I didn't remember applying for. A late fee on a utility bill I swear I paid. Everyone told me grief makes you forgetful, so I believed them. I blamed myself. I figured I was spiraling. Meanwhile, Jessa kept showing up in my life from every angle, dating my brother, talking to my mother, casually slipping into conversations that she loved old houses and hoped to own property someday. I didn't see it then. But now, standing in the kitchen with those bounced checks in her name, it all snapped into focus. This wasn't just a jealous neighbor. This was someone who'd been building a plan, piece by piece, while I was too broken to notice. And she wasn't finished yet. If finding those bounced checks was the spark, the next few days were the fire. Everything escalated so fast that I felt like I was standing outside my own life, watching it unravel in real time. The morning after I saw Jessa waving from her driveway, I barely slept. I went straight to my lawyer's office with a folder full of documents, photos of checks, mortgage statements, emails from my bank that I didn't remember opening. He spread everything out on the table like puzzle pieces. The first thing he said after scanning the paperwork was, "Someone's been inside your accounts." The room spun. I didn't even know how that was possible. I changed my passwords after Daniel died. I barely used my laptop except to pay bills. "How?" I asked. He pointed at two things: an address change request I never submitted, a linked email I didn't recognize. "Someone tried to reroute your notifications," he said. "Not everything went through, but enough did." That's when my heart sank so hard it felt like it left a bruise. I remembered something stupid, something I brushed off at the time. One afternoon, not long after the funeral, Jessa had come over with a bottle of wine. She insisted I take a break and let her help with some things around the house. She was buzzed, and she kept grabbing my laptop to check something for me because I looked tired. I didn't think anything of it. I was too numb to trust my instincts. Now I wished I'd slammed the door in her face. My lawyer told me to freeze access to every account I had and pull all 3 of my credit reports. That alone made my stomach churn, because the minute the documents loaded, the damage stared back at me in black and white. A store credit card I didn't open, a line of credit increase I didn't authorize, a failed loan application tied to my social security number. My blood ran cold. Someone had been testing my financial limits, seeing what they could get away with, seeing how close they could push me to the edge. And who was the only person who had been hovering around me, offering to help, sliding into every part of my life, whispering lies about me to everyone else? There was only one name that made sense: Jessa Carter, but I didn't have proof, not yet. So I went home, locked every window, changed every password, and started digging through old mail I'd shoved into drawers. That's when I found something that made my stomach drop all over again. A pre-foreclosure notice. Dated 3 months ago. shoved behind a stack of menus and grocery coupons. I swear to God, I never saw it. I would have remembered. I would have panicked. I would have done something. But someone else had been checking my mail during that exact time. Someone who often came over uninvited and said things like, "Oh, I grabbed the mail for you since I was walking by." And I believed her. I was grieving. I wasn't thinking straight. When I stepped onto my porch that evening, the air felt wrong, thick and heavy, like the whole street knew something I didn't. And that's when I noticed Jessa sitting outside on her own porch with a glass of wine. She smirked, actually smirked. Then she said loud enough for the whole cul-de-sac to hear, "Rough day, sweetheart, you look stressed." My throat tightened. I didn't answer. She tilted her head, studying me like she was already planning her next move. Then she added, voice honey-sweet with poison under it, "You know, if you ever need help with the mortgage, Mark and I could take it off your hands. Wouldn't want you losing that house on top of everything else." My skin crawled. Because that was the moment I realized something horrifying. She didn't just want to ruin me, she wanted my house. And she was already acting like she owned it. And the worst part, she wasn't done pushing. The first real twist, the moment everything snapped into horrifying clarity, came 2 days later, when my lawyer called and told me to come in immediately. His voice was tight, urgent, the kind of tone that makes your stomach hit the floor before you even hear the words. When I got to his office, he already had a stack of printed documents waiting for me. He didn't ease into it. He didn't give me a warning. He just slid the papers across the table and said, "Your house deed was tampered with." I blinked. "What do you mean tampered?" "Someone filed a transfer of interest form," he said. "It didn't go through because the signatures didn't match the originals, but it was submitted." My mouth went dry. "Transfer to who?" He flipped the paper around so I could read it. My vision tunneled. The transfer was to my brother, and the witness signature was Jess's. I felt like someone punched me in the chest. He kept talking, but my brain locked onto one horrifying truth. Jessa wasn't just trying to sabotage my mortgage. She was trying to wedge her way into legal ownership of my home. My dead husband's and my home. The one place I had left that felt like him. My lawyer pointed to the dates. "This was filed 6 weeks ago," he said, "right when your mortgage payments started bouncing." 6 weeks ago, right when she started dating my brother. Right when she began weaving herself into my family like she belonged there. My stomach twisted. "Do you think Mark knew?" I whispered. My lawyer shook his head. "Honestly, I doubt it. His signature isn't on anything. It looks like someone intended to use the relationship to facilitate access." He didn't say the words. He didn't have to. She was trying to use my brother as a Trojan horse. But the twist wasn't just the paperwork. It came when I confronted Mark that evening. I drove straight to his house in East Springfield, shaking and furious and terrified. He opened the door with this clueless smile like he thought I was stopping by for dinner or a drink. Then he saw my face. "What happened?" he asked. I shoved the papers into his hands. At first he looked confused, then confused turned to pale, then pale turned to horrified. "What?" He swallowed hard. "What the hell is this? You tell me. I never saw this, I didn't sign anything. My God, why would she put my name on this?" He ran a hand over his face. "Did she forge this?" And then his voice cracked in a way I'll never forget. "She told me you were talking about selling the house," he said quietly. "She said you were overwhelmed. She said she was helping you get ahead of it." My heart froze. "She what?" He looked at me with this devastated expression. "She told me you wanted me involved because you trust me more than yourself right now. That you didn't want to deal with paperwork, so you asked her to help with logistics." I felt physically sick. Because suddenly everything clicked into place. Jessa had been telling him lies, too. Carefully chosen lies. Designed to make him think she was saving me, not sabotaging me. A wave of cold washed over me. She wasn't just targeting me. She was manipulating the people closest to me so they wouldn't question her. And then came the part that made my blood run coldest of all. Mark said, "She also told me something else. Something I didn't believe at the time, but now." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What did she say?" He looked almost ashamed as the words came out. "She said Daniel planned to leave you, that your marriage was falling apart, that the insurance money made things messy." The room went silent. I couldn't breathe. "She said he died before he could move out." My knees nearly buckled, because that wasn't just a rumor. That wasn't gossip. That was a surgical strike at the most vulnerable part of me. And she'd told it to my brother to turn him against me. That was the first twist. That was when I realized this wasn't petty, this wasn't envy, this wasn't boredom. Jessa had a reason, a big one. And I was about to find out just how dark it went. The moment I left Mark's house, something in me hardened. Grief had made me soft, shock had made me slow, but now I was pissed. And underneath that anger was something sharper, colder, steadier. I was done being blindsided. I was done reacting. It was time to plan. I drove home with the windows down, trying to breathe through the rage sitting in my chest. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw Jessa standing on her porch, arms crossed, wine tumbler in hand, watching me like I was a bug she was waiting to step on. I didn't look at her, didn't give her the satisfaction, but in my periphery I saw her smile. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I didn't want yelling. I didn't want drama. I wanted evidence. I wanted precision. I wanted my lawyer to hand me the legal equivalent of a loaded weapon. So first I called him. It was late, but he picked up anyway. I need to build a full timeline, I told him. Every credit hit, every account breach, every forged signature. I want a record of everything she touched. He agreed. We scheduled a morning meeting. But he added something else. Do not interact with her, do not tell your brother the full plan. And do not underestimate her. That last part stuck with me. By the time I got off the phone, it was almost midnight, but I was wired, buzzing with adrenaline and a fear-drenched clarity I hadn't felt in months. I grabbed a notebook, sat at my kitchen table, and started writing. The mortgage sabotage, the fake address change, the forged transfer of interest, the stolen mail, the fraudulent accounts, the rumors, the manipulation of Mark, the lies about my marriage, seeing it all in one place made my stomach twist. But it also poured gasoline on the fire inside me. She hadn't just messed with my finances. She hadn't just tried to take my home. She had invaded my grief, touched the parts of my life that were still raw and bleeding, weaponized my vulnerability to build her plan. And she almost got away with it. But here's the thing about grief. Once you've lived through the worst day of your life, you stop fearing smaller monsters. Around 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and started changing everything. Passwords, security questions, two-factor authentication, locking down accounts she probably assumed were still open to her. Then I did something that made my hands shake. I set up motion cameras inside the house and around my porch. She'd been inside before. She'd accessed things she shouldn't have been near. No more. By the time the sun came up over the cul-de-sac, I had a plan forming in my head. A real one. Because the more I dug into her behavior, the lies, the creepiness, the sudden obsession, the more it felt like this wasn't her first attempt at something like this. And that meant she'd be careless somewhere. She'd slipped once. She'd slip again. I just needed to be ready. Later that afternoon, my brother texted me, "Mark, I'm sorry. I had no idea. I want to help fix this." I stared at the message, my heart aching. I knew he meant it. But I also knew Jessa had her hooks in him, and if I involved him too early, she'd smell it. So I typed back me, "I know, just keep your distance for now. Don't let her know anything changed." He agreed. And just like that, I had the first piece of leverage, silence. My silence, and his. That night, sitting alone in my dark living room, I whispered something out loud to the empty house. She thinks I'm weak. But I wasn't, not anymore. Because the truth was about to surface, and the truth would wreck her. I thought I understood the scope of what Jessa had done. I thought this was about greed, jealousy, maybe some twisted obsession with my house. I was wrong. The real twist, the one that made my whole body go cold, hit 3 days later, when the motion camera inside my living room sent an alert to my phone at 11:42 p.m. Movement detected. At first I thought it was a glitch. I was upstairs, lights off, trying to sleep. I hadn't heard anything. I opened the app. The footage loaded and there she was, Jessa, inside my house. Moving like she'd been there 100 times. She walked across my living room with purpose, not hesitation. She went straight to the drawer where I kept my mail, the same drawer where I'd found the pre-foreclosure notice shoved behind menus, and started rifling through everything. I felt my whole body go numb. She wasn't looking for valuables. She wasn't stealing anything. She was checking for something, confirming something, deleting something. She pulled out a few envelopes, looked at them under her phone light, then stuffed some into her purse. Then she did something that nearly made me drop my phone. She walked over to Daniel's old desk, the one I hadn't opened in months, and pulled open the bottom drawer. Like she knew it would be unlocked. like she knew what was inside. I watched, shaking, as she pulled out a folder labeled with my husband's handwriting. A folder I didn't even know existed. She opened it, flipped through the papers, and took photos of several pages before putting it back exactly how she found it. Then she turned toward the stairs. Toward me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to bolt the door, call 911 something anything, but I was frozen in bed. But she didn't come up. She walked to the front door, unlocked it using a key she absolutely should not have, and slipped out quietly. She had a key. She had a goddamn key to my house. I waited until the camera showed she was gone, then ran downstairs, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. I went straight to the desk drawer. The folder was there. It was labeled House Refinance Backup Docs. Inside were financial papers, an appraisal, inspection notes, and a handwritten note from Daniel I had never seen before. Not a love note. Not anything sentimental. Just a reminder to himself. Ask bank about title correction. I stared at it, confused. Title correction? For what? I called my lawyer the next morning, and he dug into old property records. When he called me back, his voice was low, serious. Your husband filed a request with the county about a possible clerical error on the deed, he said. Someone else's name had been attached to an early record. A woman named, he paused. A woman named Jessica Carter. My blood went cold. No, I whispered. No, that can't be right. She didn't even live here back then. She did, he said. About 10 years ago, before you bought the property, briefly. She co-signed a renovation loan the previous owner defaulted on. Her name was removed from the official deed, but she tried more than once to contest it. The county denied her each time. I felt the room tilt. Before she was my neighbor, before she was inserting herself into my life, before she was dating my brother, she had already tried to claim the house, years before I ever lived in it. And Daniel's note. He'd found her name on old documents too. He was trying to fix something. My stomach twisted as a single horrifying thought entered my mind. Had she known him? Is that why she moved back here? Is that why she targeted me? Because this house, this home, this place I shared with Daniel, it wasn't a new obsession for her. It was an old one, a long one, a fixation. And now it all made sense. The lies, the rumors, the mortgage sabotage, the forged transfer. The manipulation of Mark, the break-ins. She wasn't just trying to take my house. She believed it was hers, and she had been trying to reclaim it for a decade. I thought I understood obsession. I thought I understood desperation. But nothing prepared me for the truth I learned the next day. The truth that finally revealed why Jessa had done all of this. Why she'd spent years circling my life like a vulture waiting for the right moment to tear into what was left of me. It started with a phone call from my lawyer. I found something, he said, and you're not going to like it. He sent me a PDF, an archive of old court filings from 2015 when the previous owner was trying to renovate the house. I opened it, expecting more dry records. Instead, my stomach dropped when I saw the first line. Carter, Jessica Lynn, petitioner. I kept scrolling. The details felt like someone tightening a fist around my throat. Years ago, the previous owner, an older man named Hal Briggs, get the bank to approve a renovation loan. He was underwater financially. A friend of his introduced him to someone who might help. That someone was Jessa. She co-signed a $42,000 renovation loan under the condition that she would receive a partial ownership interest in the property once it was complete. But Hal defaulted before any work was finished. The bank voided the agreement, the partial ownership clause evaporated, and the court dismissed her filings, stating, petitioner holds no legal or equitable interest in the property. She fought it. Twice. Both times denied. The house was never hers. But here's the part that made my skin crawl. Attached to one of the filings was a handwritten letter from her, long, rambling, angry. The last line read, I put my money, my plans, and my future into that house. It was supposed to be mine. My lawyer called again 20 minutes later. You need to hear the rest, he said. I spoke to the previous owner's niece. She told me something personal. I braced myself. Apparently back then, Jessa wasn't just financially involved. She was emotionally entangled. She became obsessed with the idea of fixing up the house, making it her legacy, her first real stake in something. When the loan fell apart and the case was dismissed, she spiraled. According to the niece, Jessa stalked the property for years, driving by, checking sale records, watching who moved in and out. When Hal died and the property went on the market again, she tried to buy it, but she didn't qualify for the loan alone. She lost it a second time, then I moved in. A young couple buying their first home. Fresh start, no history, and she snapped. Because in her mind, I had stolen something from her before she ever met me. But that wasn't the worst part. The niece said something else, so quiet my lawyer had to repeat it. She blamed Hal's death on the stress of losing the house. She said anyone who lived there after him was standing on her life. She said the house wasn't done with her, that she'd get it back one way or another. I sat there on my couch, shaking, my heart pounding. She wasn't just jealous. She wasn't just greedy. She wasn't just manipulative. She was calculating, delusionally entitled, patient in a way that made my skin crawl. And everything she'd done, the sympathy act, the lies, the financial sabotage, dating my brother, rewriting my marriage into some twisted narrative, wasn't random. It was strategic. Because to her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle. The last obstacle standing between her and a house she believed she was owed. And she didn't care what she had to destroy to take it. Not my reputation, not my family, not my stability, not my grief, not my memories of Daniel. She wanted the deed, the walls, the floors, the land. She wanted the life inside it. And she almost had it, almost, until she broke into my house that night, until she tipped her hand. And now I knew exactly what she wanted. Exactly how far she'd go, and that meant I knew exactly how to ruin her. The night I saw her on my living room camera, everything inside me shifted. Fear burned off, grief sharpened. And the shaking, overwhelmed version of me she'd been playing like a puppet, she didn't exist anymore, because now I had proof, not just suspicion, not just circumstantial clues. Footage, dates, documents, motive, history, patterns. What she'd done wasn't petty. It wasn't neighbor drama. It wasn't gossip. It was criminal, and I was done letting her play God with my life. The next morning, I met my lawyer with a flash drive, a stack of printouts, and a level of clarity I hadn't felt since the night Daniel died. We spent hours building a full record: unauthorized access, identity misuse, mail theft, attempted deed fraud, financial manipulation, and now unlawful entry with stolen property access. He looked at me over the paperwork and said, "This is enough for criminal charges." I nodded. "Good, I want everything, all of it." He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just said, "Then we do this the right way." Quietly. And that was the key. We didn't warn her. We didn't confront her. We let her walk right into her own trap. 2 days later, I invited Mark to lunch. I told him everything, not the emotional parts, not the fear, just the facts. Cold and exact, the way she'd built her plan. His face went white, then red, then devastated. "I'll fix this," he kept saying. "I'll help however you need." I told him the truth. "You already are. You just need to act normal." He agreed. That night, Mark invited her over to his place for dinner. She posted a boomerang of her stupid wine tumbler on Instagram with the caption, "Date night kiss Mark." Perfect. Because while she was laughing at Mark's table, a locksmith, hired by my lawyer, was changing every lock on my house. And a police officer, working with the DA's office, was reviewing the video of her illegally inside my living room. And I was giving a full sworn statement. The quiet part ended that night. The next morning, at precisely 8:14 a.m., 2 unmarked cars pulled onto our street. I watched from inside as the officers walked up to her door and knocked. I wish I could say I felt triumphant, victorious, satisfied, but what I really felt was a kind of deep, exhausted justice. A leveling. She opened the door wearing pajamas and confusion. That confusion turned to panic when she saw the badge. They told her the charges. She tried smiling first, then lying, then crying, then screaming. She kept shouting things like, "She's crazy. That's MY house. This is a misunderstanding." But the officers had already seen the footage of her letting herself into my home with a key she never should have had. They escorted her to the car while the entire cul-de-sac watched. Mark stood on his porch, silent. He didn't defend her. He didn't ask questions. He just looked sick. And when they drove away, he walked to my house, hands shaking, and whispered, "I'm so sorry." I believed him. Because he wasn't her victim by choice. He was just the last pawn she tried to move before the board flipped. The DA didn't go easy on her. Identity theft, mail tampering, attempted deed fraud, unlawful entry, stalking. Her obsession finally had a legal name. She pled not guilty at first, of course she did. But the evidence crushed her. The video sealed it. She took a deal: 3 years, plus mandatory psychiatric evaluation, plus a restraining order so strict she isn't even allowed to drive down my street. The day after sentencing, I walked through my house room by room, touching the walls, the doorknobs, the places she tried to take from me. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Not because the house was safe, because I was safe. She tried to turn my life into debris so she could sift through the pieces and take what she thought was hers. But in the end, she lost everything. And I got something back that I didn't think I ever would: control. When I locked the front door that night, I whispered one last thing into the empty hallway, because she'd always hated the sound of me taking up space she thought belonged to her. Some ghosts don't haunt the house. Some ghosts try to move in, but not anymore.